Stellar Blade, the game that completely broke and decimated Western wannabe political pundit feminists.
And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing.
I don't know about you, but I think this is the best gameplay. Long ladders. Love it.
As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Stellar Blade. We've been playing a review copy, and this footage is spoiler-free, so you know, and the gameplay was captured on PS5. This game is actually only on PS5, actually. Published by Sony, but developed by Shift Up Corporation, a South Korean development studio previously focused on mobile games. So this is a big first debut. I wasn't sure what to think going into this one. After spending a bunch of hours with it, though, I really like it. It's not perfect, and some of it feels a little phoned in, but the combat and the visuals are top-notch. An analogy...
Visuals. Oh no, can you say that as IGN? Well, I think IGN gave the game 8 out of 10 or something like that at the end of the day. You know, you can't give something like this a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 because that's bad. Beautiful women in gaming should not exist. It's like a couple of days ago, they completely destroyed Pokemon, you know? People had avatars that looked pretty decent, looked pretty hot, you know, women looked like women, and then Pokemon just said, "No! All of you are gonna be ugly now. Hips? They don't exist. Everyone is gonna be as ugly as us." Oh man, the world of gaming. Where ugly women make everyone else ugly because they are ugly themselves. What a time to be alive.
Analogy, if you humor me. I'm sorry, car people, you're gonna hate this, but Stellar Blade is kind of like one of those brand new Corvettes. Yes, they don't make them like they used to, and the design may not end up being as memorable as the classic design. You know, it just doesn't have the personality of the classic Corvette, and actually reminds you of a lot of other cars out there. But still, this new one is flashy and a good fun ride. That might sound stupid, but I wanted to get my feelings out up front. I also think if you played the demo, you haven't really seen much. I think the game significantly gets much.
That's why they call it the demo, yes.
Much better and stronger as it opens up within a few more hours. So, what exactly is Stellar Blade? It's an action-adventure game centered around combat and some exploration, with some open-ended explorable areas, as well as a surprisingly big hub city. Now, you play as Eve, a kind of designed super soldier sent down to post-apocalyptic Earth, ridden with...
Hey, if I would design Super Soldier, I would exactly design it this way.
Monstrous Natibas, and she is on a quest to destroy the Alpha Natibas, the most big, bad, powerful ones. But she quickly gets wrapped up with one of the last bastions of humanity on this planet, and this whole bigger mission entails. The story, some of it is really lost in clunky performances and writing. There are some really cool ideas and some solid world building sometimes on display, but you might not find yourself really getting emotionally invested or really hooked on the characters. At least I didn't. This is, of course, a little bit more subjective. Some people are dismissing this as kind of like the poor man's Nier Automata, but like I'd push back against that. There are some moments...
Why? Why would you call this the poor man's Nier? I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but okay. Maybe some people are gonna say that, but I don't know.
Worth experiencing here, but it ultimately just feels a bit flat and lifeless compared to all the other crazy, awesome, and beautiful things going on elsewhere in this game. Namely, the combat. This is the main thing you're doing in the game, and Eve is a combat badass, and the combat is the best thing about this game. It's why I still ultimately recommend it. You have light strikes, heavy strikes, a block, a parry, and a dodge. This is how you start. You're not worrying about a stamina meter, but your block meter, and you are also trying to parry as much as possible to stun enemies and open them up for critical attacks. Parrying is tough, but mostly fair. Nailing a chain of attacks with parries feels really good, with good feedback, giant flashes, and a loud clang that, for me, just never really got old. Some enemies are a bit hard to read and time perfectly, so it's not like the most refined masterpiece in the world, but most enemies are really, really engaging clashes. And this is just with the basics. You're getting more combos, dash attacks, air attacks, and the game consistently doles out new stuff for you.
It looks pretty good. The graphics are fine. This graphic is fine, you know.
Firstly, through a skill tree. You level up and gain points to dump into a handful of skill tree clusters that are like focused on the different character aspects. So gain more combos, better dodges and perfect parries, more energy drain. There's a lot, and most of it is meaningful. You can also respec if you want at any point, but again, it's pretty generous with points, and you're gonna feel satisfied unlocking a lot consistently throughout. The game also has its own version of dealing with those pesky big enemy attacks that flash a certain color. Stop me if you've heard that before. Two examples here. An enemy attack flashes blue and you need to time it perfectly and dodge towards them. So you get a flashy little bit where your character teleports behind them and gets them vulnerable. There's also like a purpley one where when you time it right, you dodge back perfectly for another cool sequence where the enemy is stunned with a weak point exposed. Here, if you have it unlocked, you can pull out your gun and start shooting at that point, and it is really satisfying to pull off flawlessly in motion. Kind of like in The Matrix Reloaded when Morpheus flips the car over by slicing it with his sword and then spins around and starts shooting at it. It's like that, and the gunshots work really well here. The gun itself is like your little companion drone that follows you around, and when you ADS, it turns into a gun arm mount, and you have control over different ammo types and stuff, all which are pretty different. Now, Stellar Blade is still primarily a
Seems pretty cool. Can't complain about this now, can you?
brawler, but this and some other like little things like limited use throwables and healing items and buffs just give you a bit more.
Okay, though, but let's be absolutely real. This is not the way to use a gun! What are you even doing on each one?
Items and buffs just give you a bit more strategy to slashing and blocking endlessly. And along with that, there are special big abilities dependent on.
Well, anyone who didn't think that the combat is going to be the main attraction of this game was obviously wrong. Clearly, this was a game about fighting, doing combos, and all of that stuff. You knew that pretty much from the beta, right? Well, the open, whatever it was called. Yeah, people already knew that. So anyone who did... Well, it's not really a Souls-like game, obviously, but, you know, the emphasis is on fighting and slowly kind of going through the world, so that's kind of cool. This is the game that you should have expected. This is the game that you got. Everyone knew this. How do you not know this? And some people are, by the way, surprised about this. It's like, how? How are you surprised by this? This is the most clear as day thing ever. And you're like, well, I didn't expect it to actually be like this. What did you expect? A city build. How?
On meter spends mapped to holding L1 and pressing a face button, or R1 and a face button. Like beta energy attacks can really help out in a pinch, and then burst attacks are usually a bit more cinematic and are worth saving for the right moment to really save your ass. There's also more the game doles out to you that I don't want to spoil, but essentially one of them, it's like more temporary power, and it's cool as hell. I'll let you discover that for yourself, though. When you really get a grip on all of these gameplay combat elements, I can't really express just how exciting and fun it feels to execute a perfect fight, man. It's flashy, it's over the top, and there are some great enemy types. You know, a few generic stinkers here and there, but some of the bigger bads and the bosses are really imposing, and have them wailing on you and you're just effortlessly cling clang blocking them to open them up for a special attack, and then you get like this big...
Imagine you could be playing this or eating Tide Pods for TikTok challenges. What a choice. What a choice indeed.
Big over-the-top thing with Eve flipping over them with a sword. It's cool. It's all really great in motion. I know I'm overusing the word cool, but that's what it is here.
Good stuff.
And challenge-wise, the game is actually
good, decent stuff. Those are the animations that I want to see. That's what I like. What's wrong with this? And some people are going out there and saying, you can't play this game because it's a hot character. What do you mean? I want to play this game because that's a hot character. Did you see the jumps? Did you see the things that just happened here? I'm sorry, but a 350 libbed whatever land whale cannot really pull this off. So, you know, I like this. Look at this. Perfection at its finest. Let's look again. Bam! Look at that. Look at... Bam! Bam! More. Beautiful. This is what we want. This is what gaming should be about.
And challenge-wise, the game is actually fairly reasonable up to a point. As someone who, to be honest, my skills just get worse and worse over the years, the game does a good job coaching. You hit multiple points in the game where it kind of feels like a boss or a sub-boss is kind of built around being a skill check, making you kind of really get it before moving forward, and I appreciate that. That being said, though, don't expect a cakewalk. The game is no slouch, and it does really ramp it up, so good luck. My only complaint with the combat, really, facing off against a few enemies at once feels a bit messy. Partially, I think, because of the lock-on, but also, I think, just because of Eve's maneuverability. She's not always the best at striking one enemy and then pivoting to another. The combat is way better for one-on-one. Now, you get used to this problem, you can handle crowds, you can work with it, especially with the beta abilities, but it just doesn't feel as crisp as the rest of it. Like when you're slashing at a handful of enemies that are like a little shorter than you, it just feels a little bit more wonky. The game has plenty of...
Yeah, that's understandable, though.
Side quests and things to pick up on from characters in the world, and some of them are pretty decent and somewhat in-depth, but they usually end up grindy or revolve around being something else to do or look for while you're on your main mission. When it wants you in certain missions to go back to a previous area for a side quest, I found those less exciting. Some environments, though, can be downright jaw-dropping looking. Just soaring, barren landscapes or beautiful sunsets, post-apocalyptic wastelands, spooky caves and caverns and laboratories. But other areas, like when you're actually playing...
Good. You need diverse biomes because that is interesting. Spending 20 hours in a white room is not exactly interesting most of the time.
Can just be pretty linear, boring hallways where you might get a little lost because stuff actually repeats. This is where the game loses some personality points. Now, exploration is usually rewarding because you find goodies to craft attack upgrades, you find expendable items and money to use at shops, also materials for crafting new outfits, of which there are a lot. You can be sexy, you can be robotic, you can be tactical, casual, dressed up, or weird, and you can change your hair. So
I mean, I think we all know which one we're choosing, right?
Good luck, have fun if you're into that stuff. But the exploration does tend to feel a bit bland after a while. Some really tedious puzzles and clunky platforming feel like video game bullshit. You know, just phoned in stuff there to kind of slow me down. I don't hate it, you know, it's all perfectly workmanlike. None of it's too frustrating, but it's the area of...
Hey, it could be better, and this is a reasonable thing to complain about and actually call out even. Because, you know, hey, either your game's a platformer or it's not typically. It's kind of hard to design enough good platform elements into a fighting game to make it actually worthwhile. I'm pretty sure no one enjoys platforming in, you know, any Dark Souls game, honestly, because it's kind of fucking annoying most of the time and frustrating. But, you know, it's still there. And it's not the greatest thing that's still there, but, you know, it's not the worst thing because there's not that much of it. And that's technically not even the saving grace, but, you know, at least the bad stuff is there, but at least it's not that much in this case. And for a game of decent quality, that's acceptable.
The game that can feel a bit boring and lifeless. Also, along with that, just wanted to point out there are a few action sequences where you need to pull off something perfectly or you get an instant fail, and some of those felt kind of half-baked and annoying. But thankfully, on the bright side, the hub town is really cool, and there's some creativity on display here. Now, a lot of the time, I will totally say this. The game can just feel like kind of a mishmash of sci-fi elements and stuff.
Zion, by the way. Let's look at Zion. Wow. I wonder if this game is just a giant Matrix reference at this point.
Feel like kind of a mishmash of sci-fi elements and styles and designs and forgettable characters. But then every once in a while you stumble upon a weird NPC or a little quest or a journal entry that makes the game feel like it has something cool to it and is a bit more thought out. You know, it's not the most cohesive, but it's sometimes interesting. But if you can't tell by the tone of my voice, I am mixed. Also, the vendors and stuff, like the vendors have their own quirks.
Is this an ad? Is this an ad? Malt with cocoa. Damn. Tropical fruits. Dude, this is something else. Isn't this a real brand? Isn't this a real life thing, by the way? I'm not sure, but I think it is.
And necessities,
or it's slightly changed.
They also have an affinity level, so the more you buy from them, you level up the affinity and unlock more things to buy. They'll also tell you,
like in real life with prostitutes. I love these affinity level things
and just kind of open up the world a little bit. And then you have your crew members you can chat with as well. Again, a lot of this stuff can trend on the forgettable side, but there are some moments. And I think some people just might dig some characters or aspects more than me, but really, like I've been saying, the main crux is the combat, and it just really kicks.
Thanks to teamwork, bro, please. Thanks to the tightest bikini in the history of the earth.
Ass. I was always excited for the next encounter, always excited for the next fight, even like with a low-level enemy, because it's so satisfying. Now, Stellar Blade just feels kind of like its own thing in this department. It's not a Bayonetta, it's not like a big slasher thing, it's not a Nier, it's also not quite like a Souls RPG. It's just its own flashy, zany thing that takes elements from other games. And I think I really like
Well, it does kind of look unique and whatnot. I understand the people who compare it to Nier and whatnot. You know, post-apocalyptic, blah, 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 civilization, super soldier, droid, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Kind of close, but it's not actually it. But yeah, well, I don't think it's fair to compare this to Nier, but, I guess this is the closest comparison.
Stellar Blade for that. Also, depending on how you play and explore, anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, but there are multiple endings and reasons to replay, so that's all I'll say. Really, the gist of this game, it is fun. Stellar Blade is just like 100% old-fashioned video game fun. It might not be the most cohesive or unforgettable world, but like killing bad guys with cool graphics and some really good music and vibes with thrilling combat, sometimes that's all I really need. I don't really need to overthink things too much. So to be honest, that's a before you buy. You know how this works by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now we want to hear yours down in the comments.
Yep, that's good enough. Anyway, that was Game Ranks. I don't know how much IGN gave them, 8, I think. Well, does Game Ranks even give scores? I don't think they do. Anyway, that was Game Ranks. This was Cause of Sense. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.